Part 45. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun Jeon. Chapter 441. Lin Xian's two ideas are actually those who know a little bit about criminal investigation and can analyze the cause and effect. First, the first inference. One might think of hypnosis. But it can be said with certainty that this is not hypnosis. Already mentioned above. Hypnosis is not a magical skill, and the performer cannot break the bottom line of the recipient's heart. Otherwise, the hypnosis will be terminated and the subject will be forcibly awakened. What's your inner bottom line? For example, suicide, homicide. 99% of people in this world don't want to die and don't dare to kill anyone. This is the psychological barrier of human beings, which cannot be broken. If you just ask him to commit suicide or kill someone, the hypnosis will be lifted and you will wake up instantly. Let's take a closer look at the cases Lin Xian solved in the past. Like some kind of psychology or psychological induction. They all use psychological suggestion and induction to cause the victim's body functions to fail and die unexpectedly. If hypnosis can make people commit suicide, why do they have to go to all the trouble and just let the victim commit suicide? So Lin Xian only had one guess. The murderer mastered the secrets of the victims and forced them to commit suicide. Is it possible? As the saying goes, it is better to die than live. As long as there is a little hope of living, even if you try to coerce, you will not commit suicide, right? No, it's still possible. For example, someone threatens your wife, children, and parents. Either they die or you die. How do you choose? Another example, one side is 100 million, and the other side is your life. If you die, this money will be given to your wife, children, and parents. To be honest, some men are as tired as social animals every day, just to live a good life for their wives, children, and parents. They will really die without hesitation. There are too many examples like this, and there are many ways to force a person to submit. But Lin Xian's second reasoning is a bit scary. It was inspired by a novel and was later made into a movie. Agatha's No Survival. Why do you think of this novel? Because anyone who has read this novel or movie can find it? Is the case in front of me very similar to this novel? In the original work, various professionals are also invited to a place. Then all these people died, killed, or committed suicide. No one survived. And the release time of this novel was in 1939. Is it possible that someone is committing a crime imitating this novel? The reason why Lin Xian said, there was a murderer who killed 12 people and then committed suicide. Because the most powerful thing about Agatha's novels is their popularity. It is because through the novel, it has taught all criminal investigators a lesson. This queen of suspense uses novels to tell the world what a perfect crime is. So what is the perfect crime she describes in her novel? The highest level of murder is when the murderer turns himself into the victim. If Lin Xian's reasoning is true, then among the 13 dead people in front of you, one must be the murderer. He killed 12 other people by using means that the police could not detect for the time being. Then, he killed himself. Became a victim in the eyes of the police. But the killer is smart. When the police discovered the case, they immediately threw a puzzle. Rich businessman. He deliberately asked the wealthy businessmen who lived in the villa for 5 days not to leave any fingerprints. This is to make the police suspect him and investigate him. It makes people think that the wealthy businessman is likely to have a motive for committing the crime. He could even guess that the police would definitely think of Agatha's death. It is speculated that the murderer may be one of the 13 deceased. This is his brilliance. If you really follow that novel about no survivors, it is very likely that you will fall into a trap. If you don't follow this novel, check it out. The investigation may be led astray and fall into another trap. The murderer has put every thought you can think of into it. Everything has been thought of and planned. We also set up traps specifically for your thinking. A bit awesome. Lin Xian's face looked ugly. I really don't like this kind of test of my IQ. I don't like opponents with intelligence even more. However, Lin Xian thought of what the teacher said repeatedly when he was in the police academy: people who think they are smart are often the stupidest people. This kind of person always likes to use his or her IQ to crush others. He likes to use cumbersome means to mislead others. It's like killing people. You can obviously kill people directly. But it turned a simple murder into a suspense case. Precisely because the process of killing has been made cumbersome, countless extra steps have been added. It's easy to make mistakes during these steps. First, confirm who is the murderer. Lin Xian picked up the tablet, looked at the 13 pieces of information again, and ordered, check all the footprints of the deceased. Team members. What's the meaning? Suppose there is a murderer who wants to kill 12 people. Lin Xian said in a low tone, the murderer will inevitably come into contact with the other 12 victims. His footprints are likely to have appeared around the 12 victims. I am not talking about the death scene, but the daily contacts, the daily life within 5 days. Everyone was stunned at first, and then suddenly realized. That's right. How do you let someone die without contact? Use your mind? Suppose you want someone to commit suicide, do you need to use certain methods? How could he not appear next to the victim? Don't talk about using mobile phones and text messages. The police have checked all the communication and social tools of the 13 victims. There is no abnormality. This means that the murderer should have contacted other victims. As long as he has contacted, his footprints will appear next to the victim. And this kind of footprints will definitely be more than others. But after the team members checked, they were shocked to find that all the footprints are very normal. In the 5 days of life, there were no extra or abnormal footprints around the 13 people. What does this mean? It's a bit amazing. Lin Xian's face was solemn, and he murmured, are you mocking me? This situation is just like the disappearing fingerprints of the rich businessman. The murderer is telling him, I have a way to hide fingerprints, and I have a way to hide footprints. The murderer had already calculated that he was going to check the footprints, so he had wiped off all the footprints. The other party was indeed mocking them. Using the disappearing fingerprints of the rich businessman, I mocked them in advance, knowing that they would definitely check the footprints. Is it powerful? The IQ is not ordinary high. Lin Xian's eyes became extremely bright. The face that was not surprised by anything actually showed an excited expression. Like a wolf, seeing delicious prey. Since you can think of everything I can think of in advance then. Lin Xian smiled and murmured, there is one thing that I guess you can't think of. I wanted to communicate with you in the way of ordinary people, but you don't cherish it? Then don't blame me for cheating. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Qixiong. Chapter 442. Lin Xian stood in the hall of the villa and closed his eyes. What kind of cheat is he going to use? His reborn cheat body makes his memory comparable to photographic memory. Anything he has seen will be imprinted in the brain memory bank. For example, footprints. Lin Xian only needs to remember the footprints of all the dead in the whole villa. Through these daily footprints, reverse inference can be made on the daily movement trajectories of the 13 dead. For example, a person appears in the villa and lives for 5 days. Where he appears, where he has been, and what he has done can all be reflected through footprints. Then through the 5-day movement trajectories of 13 people, daily activities are analyzed and gathered in the brain. You can retrace the life videos of 13 people in 5 days. In an instant. It's like a virtual picture appeared in his brain. Like watching one person after another, opening the door of the villa. Walking into this villa. Their footprints appeared in the villa, in order. Who is the first person, and who is the second person? It appears in Lin Xian's mind. They live in the villa and play games in the villa. Lin Xian watched 13 virtual people gather in the hall. Sitting or standing in front of the coffee table, he saw a person dealing cards. This person is a student. Because his footprints showed a sitting posture, but when dealing cards, due to distance problems, he would often show a half squat and lean forward posture. The footprints under his feet would move in a small range and become disordered again and again. Prove that he is the dealer. Gan Minghui, male, 20 years old, a student at a certain university, returned home for winter vacation. The picture in Lin Xian's brain suddenly paused. It is strange that a student appears here. What is even stranger is that Gan Minghui has no causal relationship with the other 12 people. Why can he be the dealer of everyone present? The picture in his mind continues to run. Lin Xian watched a group of people playing Close Your Eyes Before Dark there. The first round. A player was voted out by the crowd and sentenced to death. The player left the table. He is the electrician. Lin Xian followed his footprints and walked towards the storage room. The storage room is where the power switch for the entire villa is located. It can be found through the traces at the scene. The electrician opened the switch box and unplugged the live wire and the neutral wire. Died of electric shock. The results of the autopsy were indeed so, with skin burns, arrhythmia, respiratory arrest. He was indeed electrocuted. An electrician was actually electrocuted by the most common civilian electricity. Isn't it weird? Lin Xian looked ugly and walked out of the storage room and returned to the hall. The scene of a group of people playing games appeared in his mind again. The second round of the game. Another player was voted to death by everyone. And this player is a woman. Reporter. Lu Xiajun, female, 30 years old. This female reporter and everyone did not know each other, and there was no cause and effect. Why did she appear in the villa? Lu Xiajun's death was also very strange. She walked to a cabinet in the corridor of the villa and opened the drawer. She took out a utility knife from it and ejected the blade. She cut open her abdomen. The various traces at the scene showed that she had indeed committed suicide. As the game continued, Lin Xian found that there were 3 players, who refused to die. Even more bizarre things happened. All 3 players died from some kind of coincidence and accident. For example, someone was suffocated to death by a candy cube. Someone slipped and hit his forehead on the steps when going downstairs and died. The last person actually fell from the 2nd floor of the villa. The body just hit a pagoda-shaped antique, and the antique pierced his body and died. What a niche coincidence and accident. Lin Xian raised the corner of his mouth, a little sarcastic. Let's talk about the game of Close Your Eyes Before Dark. No matter how you play, there will be a winner in the end. But the game in front of him doesn't seem to be like this. It's that everyone is voting, and whoever they vote for will die. In 4 days, 10 people died. Finally, on the 5th day, only 3 people survived. Police and soldiers, and a wealthy businessman who never participated in the game. The policeman was a criminal policeman, and he committed suicide with his police gun. Then, the soldier also committed suicide with his police gun. And this soldier was even more strange, asking for leave on his day off. But the army has regulations that the conditions for asking for leave include traveling with 2 people. But he left his companions, ran away secretly, and came to the villa. He stayed in the villa for 5 days and finally committed suicide. Now, 12 people are dead. The last one to survive was the rich businessman. But the rich businessman also died in the end. Died of gas poisoning. Through the analysis of the footprints at the scene, Lin Xian once again discovered a terrible fact. The murderer actually calculated that someone could deduce the crime scene. So the footprints at the scene are all normal. How could it be possible? Lin Xian was stunned. he was already a little unable to understand. What kind of IQ does it take to calculate to such an extent? However, Lin Xian also figured out one thing. The murderer's method of killing was not in the villa at all, but outside the villa. Outside the villa? To put it bluntly, this happened long before the 13 dead people entered the villa. The murderer had already used some method to force them into the villa. Participated in a death game. Everyone had to die, and they had to die, and they had to commit suicide. If they didn't commit suicide, they would die by accident. From the moment the 13 people entered the villa, their fate of death was already determined. This also explains why in the villa, no traces of the murderer approaching others could be found. What a terrible method, Lin Xian frowned. A person with such a high IQ. He just wanted to kill people for fun? No, his status should not allow it. Ordinary people in his eyes were almost the same as ants. It was meaningless to him to step on ants one by one. Since his IQ was so high, he stepped on 13 ants. Why? Lin Xian's face turned cold. There must be a cause and effect between the 13 dead people. We haven't found the cause and effect, check. Yes. The team members began to investigate the past of the 13 dead people. A day passed. A clue was found. It was Zhan Xiaoyang who found it. He reported to Lin Xian, "Boss, I found a tool on the computers of several of the dead, but it was not the dark web, it should be a tool to enter a secret network, and that network has long disappeared. The last time they used the tool to log in was 2 years ago. Network disappeared." Lin Xian's face showed a sudden realization. Only the network can connect people from all walks of life together. He ordered Zhan Xiaoyang again, "Find it out, I want to see what it is." Zhan Xiaoyang is worthy of being a computer genius, and he found another clue. A clue that makes people stunned. He found a web game. A very antique web game. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun. Chapter 443. Jianghu is a web chat room game. It appeared in 1999 and became popular around 2000. For many people, anyone who has played this game is already an uncle or even a grandpa. But it's just such a text chat game. Records were set one after another, and many followed suit. At that age, there are people playing Jianghu in every internet cafe. Various versions of Jianghu. Up to now, this is a complete antique level game. Who would have thought that such an almost extinct antique game would appear 2 years ago? Moreover, many of the 13 victims had login tools to enter this game on their computers. Zhan Xiaoyang used his own technology and also discovered a server that had been shut down for a long time. And through the traces in this server, we found the server address. The home of a rich businessman. Lin Xian and Zhan Xiaoyang arrived at the wealthy businessman's home and turned on a computer. The hard drive was formatted, but it was a joke to Zhan Xiaoyang. 2 hours later, all the data from 2 years ago was recovered. The data of the Jianghu game was also retrieved one by one. Important clues were discovered again. The 13 dead people were all players of this game. No, there should be 14 people who have played this game. Through tracking the IP records on the server, it was found that the IP came from overseas. Zhan Xiaoyang once again used his technology to target foreign locations. Damokuo, a public network on a university campus. Lin Xian took out his cell phone and called Kuowen. Less than half an hour. National Security issued an investigation report. It was confirmed that there is indeed such a school in Damao country, and there are many international students in Long country. But it is almost impossible to track who used the public network to enter the country and play a web game 2 years ago. Lin Xian issued an order again. Survey students at the school. 2 years ago, that is, during the time period when IP was logged in to play games. Have there been any unusual events in the school? 3 hours later. Qiuwen replied again, no. Lin Xian frowned. He ordered the police to investigate entry and exit records from 2 years ago. The focus is on international students from the school in the Mountain City area going to Daimao country, as well as investigating the records of students from the school in Daimao country entering the Mountain City. Through investigation, 26 people were identified. Among them, 24 are from the Long Kingdom and 2 are from the Daimao Kingdom. After follow-up investigation, 25 of them are alive and 1 is missing. A survey of 25 people found no abnormalities. Only the missing person noticed something unusual. The time of disappearance was exactly 2 years ago. It actually coincides with the closing time of the game. Zhao Binli, female, 20 years old, time of disappearance, an international student at XX University in Daimao. Her parents are still alive, and she has a brother who is 1 year younger than her. When Lin Xian saw Zhao Binli's brother's information, he took a breath. 2 big words came to mind: genius. Zhao Qiang was selected by a university's mathematical Olympiad team at the age of 13 and became the youngest member of the team at the time. At the age of 13, he began to form a team to compete with a group of high school students and won numerous awards. At the age of 14, he entered the National Mathematical Olympiad team with his outstanding performance. However, due to a physical accident at the age of 15, he took a break from school and recuperated at home. He was 19 years old, the year his sister Zhao Binli disappeared. She disappeared. Lin Xian was stunned. The siblings disappeared around the same time. Are they all missing in the country? Lin Xian's heart sank when he thought of the murderer in this case. Because he found that the murderer in this case had a terrifying IQ. But now, he discovered a very powerful genius. Do you think this is a coincidence? Moreover, who among those who can play the mathematical Olympiad is not good at calculations? The converse of the word calculate is, calculate. Let's use a simple metaphor. Compared to Wei Shen, we ordinary people are just a bunch of retarded people. That's an exaggeration. If someone spins their brains around, it might take you a year to think about it. If this kind of person commits a crime, the layout. Lin Xian's scalp began to feel numb and he ordered, check carefully about these siblings. A day later, the results were meager. There is little useful information about the siblings. Lin Xian went to meet the parents of the siblings in person. The home is in very good condition. The father of the siblings is obviously middle-aged, but he looks as haggard as an old man. The sibling's mother is even worse and has a mental disorder. But it's normal. Anyone who loses 2 children will not be a normal parent. After a short chat and inquiry, Lin Xian found nothing useful. When Lin Xian returned to the crime scene and walked into the community, he was ready to continue the investigation. Sudden. He turned his head and looked at a certain place. 300 meters away, somewhere on a rooftop. A man is holding a high-power monocular telescope. The 2 eyes looked at each other. Building rooftop. The man in front of the telescope trembled, and a look of shock appeared on his emotionless face. He thought he was dazzled. Blinking his eyes, he looked back at the community and at the handsome young man just now. As a result, he widened his eyes and his pupils suddenly contracted. That handsome young man disappeared. How could a living person disappear? However, when the man used a telescope to search the villa area, he even searched outside the villa area, he never saw the young man again. The man's face instantly lost color and his body trembled involuntarily, as if he thought of something incredible. He came to find me? This is a question, but also an affirmative sentence. In an instant, The man did not hesitate at all, threw down the telescope and turned around and ran. Rushed into the safety passage and into the building. When he rushed to the elevator, suddenly, he sensed an extreme danger. This perception is like the perception of a wild beast. It is the ability that the man has gained after experiencing countless battlefields and countless battles. Generally, as long as you have the strength of a soldier king, you almost have a perception that exceeds that of ordinary people. That's right. He is a soldier king, but not a regular soldier. He is a mercenary king. Who can make a mercenary king feel extremely dangerous? Zhan Bing? The man looked ashen. No, he had seen Zhan Bing and experienced the horror of Zhan Bing. But the horror before him was even scarier than Zhan Bing. The man was very sure. The man was in the elevator and the other party also sensed him. His body sent out an unprecedented alarm. Danger, run. The man quickly rushed to the stairwell and ran downstairs. Just rushed down one floor. Ding, the elevator door opened. Lin Xian walked out. But his eyes looked at the stairwell not far away and sneered. Why are you running? Am I that scary? It seems like I am forcing myself on a decent woman. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun Zhong. Chapter 444. The man was running like crazy. 13th floor, 12th floor, 11th floor. When he just arrived on the 8th floor. Sudden. A black shadow flashed outside the stairwell window. The man was stunned. Why is there a black shadow outside the building? It seems huge. What is that? But the next second, there was a snap. The man heard an unusual noise on the windowsill outside the window. Followed by boom, the window in the stairwell exploded, and glass shards flew everywhere. A figure appeared in front of the man in the glassy sky. The man's body trembled suddenly, as if he was struck by electricity. Apparently he was shocked by the sudden change. He finally knew what the figure outside the window just now was. A man is jumping off a building. And in the process of jumping off the building, he used his hands to forcefully grab the windowsill to buffer. Then he rushed into the building from the window. Is this really something humans can do? The man's body jerked back and his arms were raised. The sword suddenly appeared and stabbed the person in front of him. At the same time, a mocking tone sounded, "Cossack mercenaries." The man was shocked. Snapped. His palm was held. Click, the wrist is broken. But the man's reaction speed is also as fast as human limit. The thigh then kicked the opponent's lower body. But the man didn't know. All his attacks seemed to be in slow motion in the eyes of the person in front of him. Like a turtle crawling. Bang. One foot stepped on the man's calf. Click, blood splattered everywhere, and the calf was broken. The blood instantly stained the man's trousers. But the man seemed unable to feel the pain. The other hand was already hitting the opponent, extremely cruel. It's completely a style of trading injury for injury, life for life. He didn't expect it. The opponent also raised his fist, almost exactly the same. Hit his fist. Bang. Blood spurted out and splashed from the man's fist again. The four fingers on the fist were completely broken and twisted. I lost all feeling in my calves and hands. Despair appeared in the man's eyes. Sure enough, the opponent was more terrifying than the soldiers. Hundreds of times more terrifying. The next moment, his neck was held by the other party. His strong body was lifted lightly. As if grabbing a little chicken, he walked casually downstairs. Outside the building, Lin Xian let go of the man's neck and threw it to the ground. Ask you again. Lin Xian looked at the other party, Cossack mercenary. This man has a strong physique, well-defined muscles, and exudes a dangerous aura, but he is of yellow descent. The reason why I guessed it was a Cossack mercenary was because the other party's aura was that of a soldier, but not a regular army. Thinking about this case again, the youngest son of a Cossack mercenary leader died. What a coincidence. A mercenary appears near the crime scene. You can figure out the identity of this person without even guessing. Yes, the man answered honestly. Your boss asked you to come. Lin Xian's eyes were cold. Yes. The man quickly replied, the general found out that his child was killed in the Dragon Kingdom and asked me to come over and investigate. How many people? Lin Xian continued to ask. Only me. The man sighed, I'm just here to investigate. Contact your general, I want to speak to him. Lin Xian looked at the man, now. 40 minutes later. A hotel room. Lin Xian took out a mobile phone from a suitcase and turned it on. After connecting to the internet, use a software in the mobile phone to make a call. It takes about 5 seconds to connect. Joseph. The other person spoke in Russian. Dragon Kingdom Kuoan. Lin Xian said coldly, let your general answer the phone. The other party fell into silence. 10 seconds later. An old voice sounded on the phone, in Russian, hello. Lin Xian was surprised. I didn't expect that the other party would use honorifics. Hello. Lin Xian's tone became a little gentler, did you send people into the Dragon Kingdom? Yes. The other party admitted without any excuse, my child is dead. Condolences. Lin Xian's tone was slightly cold, but this is not the reason why you let mercenaries enter the Dragon Kingdom. I know. The other party sighed, with a sad tone, I have no intention of being an enemy of the Dragon Kingdom, never. But, can you understand the pain of a father losing his son? Lin Xian was silent. Although people have to follow the rules. But even the law has a saying, the law is nothing more than human feelings. Sometimes you need to be ethical when doing certain things. Anyone else's child would have been killed. How could a father not want to know the truth? Wait a moment. Lin Xian put down his cell phone and dialed the office number of Tix Lao Yu. After safe transfer, more than 10 seconds later. What's up? Yu Lao's voice came from the receiver. Lin Xian reported the situation at hand. Then, even Yu Lao fell silent. After a long while, he said 4 words, it won't happen again. Call ended. Lin Xian picked up another phone, our boss said, this won't happen again. If you send mercenaries into Longguo again, I will personally chop off your head, understand? The other party was silent for a while and said 4 words, I'm looking forward to it. Lin Xian's face sank and he put down the phone. A terrifying murderous aura burst out from his body. Old man, are you courting death? Some rules transcend everything. You can't break this rule just because your son dies. Lin Xian sympathized with the other party, but that didn't mean he was talking nonsense. As long as any Cossack mercenaries enter Longguo again, then there is no need for this Cossack mercenary to exist. Back to the villa at the crime scene. Lin Xian has called Zhou Lai. Dispatch a team of special operations personnel to Shancheng. At the same time, call Kong Ding of the Ministry of National Security and Kong Ding of the Ministry of Public Security. Pay special attention to the entry of foreign mercenaries, especially Cossack mercenaries. Afterwards, Lin Xian inspected the scene again. What are you looking for? Surveillance and wiretapping. He suspected that the case in front of him was done by a genius. Zhao Qiang. His purpose should be for his sister, Zhao Binglei. Zhao Binglei's disappearance may be related to this case. But because everything happened 2 years ago, it is related to a web game. And everyone who participated in this game back then is dead. 13 people died and 1 person disappeared. The investigation is too difficult. The possibility of finding clues is very small. But if this case was done by Zhaoqiang, since he chose this villa, he must have arranged something. Doesn't he want to witness the death of some people, or confirm the death of some people? So, during the process of these people's death, does he have to watch the whole process to confirm it? Then, there should be some monitoring and monitoring methods in the villa to confirm the death of 13 people. Is that right? Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun. Chapter 445. Lin Xian used his supervision to start the investigation in the villa. Hasn't he already investigated it several times? Yes. But now, he felt that his eyes were deceived. Or, he was deceived by a genius. And this genius can calculate any of your thoughts. He can also calculate that you must have investigated the villa. So, if he uses wiretapping and monitoring, he will hide in places that ordinary people can't imagine. Even some old criminal investigators and some high IQ personnel can't imagine it. Because this genius has calculated you criminal investigators to death. But whether it is Zhaoqiang, Lin Xian dare not confirm it. After all, some cases can be reversed in various ways. Do you think you see the truth? Don't make a fuss. Some cases can't guess what the truth is until the end. Lin Xian's eyes checked the whole villa bit by bit. 2 hours later, his face turned a little blue. Because nothing was found. But the more he didn't find it, the bigger the problem was. He never doubted his intuition. It doesn't matter if you are wrong, but if you are right, that's the most fatal. Suddenly, Lin Xian was stunned. If the police come to the crime scene, what should they do first? Protect the scene. Nothing in the scene can be destroyed, this is common sense. Is there a possibility? The other party knows that you dare not destroy the scene. So those monitoring and eavesdropping methods are hidden in the place you dare not destroy. Lin Xian walked into the bathroom, looked at the bloody and smelly bathtub, and ordered, "Turn on the water." Everyone was dumbfounded and looked at him. They couldn't figure out the taboo of destroying the scene. As a police king, why would Lin Xian make such a mistake? But orders are orders. The water in the surf bathtub was quickly drained. Towel. Lin Xian raised his hand, and the team member handed him a towel. He began to wipe the bathtub carefully and wiped it clean. Then, his eyes lit up. In the bathtub, he found a dot the size of a cotton swab head. This dot seemed to be embedded in the bathtub, and its color was similar to that of the bathtub. When the team members saw the dot, their faces changed. After identification, it was found that there was actually an infrared temperature sensor hidden inside the bathtub. As long as someone enters the bathtub, this infrared temperature sensor can sense it. And through it, a person's body temperature can also be distinguished. For example, if a person dies, his body temperature will drop rapidly. At the same time, this infrared temperature sensor has a remote data transmission function. It will send out all the detected data. Good trick, Lin Xian was amused. Through this method, the murderer can confirm whether someone has entered the bathtub and whether the person who entered the bathtub is dead. Is that right? Just say, who can think of such a trick? Even the old criminal detective can't think of it, right? Then, Lin Xian found another abnormality. There is something wrong with the bathroom glass in the villa. Many people may have seen how to identify one-way perspective mirrors on the internet. For example, put your finger on the mirror and investigate its image. In a traditional mirror, the fingernail is not directly connected to the image. If it is a one-way perspective mirror, the fingernail will be connected. But Lin Xian and other team members never thought of it. Someone actually made a special one-way perspective mirror. The perspective point of this mirror is only the size of a coin. The rest of the place is normal. How can you find it? How can you find it? If Lin Xian hadn't thought of a genius and noticed something wrong, Maybe even he would be fooled. When the mirror was broken, a pinhole camera was hidden inside. And this pinhole camera also has the function of remote data transmission. Haha, Lin Xian sneered. Okay, you are so cruel. Then after a carpet-style destruction, Lin Xian and his team members found a total of 9 cameras, 6 listening devices, and 4 infrared temperature sensors. All hidden in unexpected places. All places that criminal investigators can't easily destroy. Lin Xian and others can be said to have opened their eyes. The murderer's layout was so exquisite and his methods were so superb that they had never seen it before. Not only was he smart, but he also calculated people's hearts to the limit. Lin Xian was also 90% sure that the murderer might really be Zhao Qiang. Because only such a genius. It was possible to calculate him, the police king, and his team members to such an extent. And even if you found these things now, it would still be useless. You can't find the murderer through these things. You can only confirm that there is such a murderer. That's all. It's like you bought a pie and took several bites before you got the filling. But how much filling is in this pie is still unknown. There is another possibility that there is only one bite of filling in this pie. The rest is all pie. This is the opponent's method. Is it powerful? Whether it is Lin Xian or the team members, their faces became more solemn than ever. Because in their opinion, the opponent's method is more than powerful. But it was terrifying. Suddenly, Lin Xian looked at the cameras, listening devices, and infrared temperature sensors. He asked, "Are you watching us now?" In an instant, the scalps of the team members almost exploded because of his words. They felt creepy and stared at those things. No way. In fact, even Lin Xian himself was doubting whether his guess was wrong. Because he did not feel any feeling of being spying. And the opponent he faced this time was not an ordinary person. You have no idea what other means he has. Who knew that at this moment? He. A sneer that could not distinguish between men and women sounded in the living room of the villa. That weird laughter seemed to echo in your ears. The air became gloomy and terrifying, making people shudder. In an instant, Lin Xian stood in front of the coffee table. Because the sound came from the coffee table. When Lin Xian waved the cards on the coffee table. But he did not find anything abnormal. But Lin Xian's eyes were fixed on the marble tabletop. He raised his hand and punched. Boom! The marble tabletop was shattered by his punch. An object appeared in the broken marble. After identification, it was a physical conduction speaker. Many people may have heard of this kind of speaker for the first time. However, many people have seen a kind of headphones. Bone conduction headphones. Their principles are very similar, both of which are a way of sound conduction. That is, converting sound into mechanical vibrations of different frequencies, transmitting sound waves through object sensing. Facts once again proved that Lin Xian guessed right. He also stepped on the murderer's tail. What happens if a cat's tail is stepped on? It will scratch people. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun Zhong. Chapter 446. Winter nights are like ink. The cold wind blew through the silent streets, picking up fallen leaves and dust. Lin Xian and his team members were standing outside the community smoking cigarettes and blowing the cold wind. Get together to analyze the case. We ruined the killer's plan. Lin Xian squinted his eyes and exhaled a smoke ring. Follow the normal plot. The murderer carefully laid such a big scheme that the police would not be able to crack in a short time. Because the murderer has planned everything. But Lin Xian appeared and completely disrupted the opponent's plan. This is like a person who has worked hard to stack a building block. As a result, a man came over and kicked the blocks, causing them to fall apart. How would the person who stacked the blocks react? What is the other party's purpose? Wang Meng frowned. The team members shook their heads, unable to judge. If the murderer is a normal person, we can also infer the criminal psychology. Now they discovered that this man was not only highly intelligent, but also had extremely weird criminal methods. It is basically impossible to reason in a normal way. For example, scientists are a group of highly intelligent people. Can you understand some of the things that people sometimes invent? IQ, psychology, thinking, are not on the same channel, and it is impossible to reason at all. Since we can't figure out his purpose, we will follow the normal case reasoning. Lin Xian's eyes burned. There are only a few purposes for intentional killing: venting anger, venting excitement. Under normal circumstances, most of them are venting anger, and those latter almost involve twisted psychology. But if it is venting anger, the most direct method is often adopted. With the murderer's IQ, ordinary people are just like ants in his eyes. How free is he to entertain ants? A person who shouldn't be playing with ants, but he trampled some ants to death? Unless these ants angered him. Lin Xian's face was gloomy. Suppose this person is Zhao Qiang. We have already wondered whether this case is related to his sister. After all, the time period when his sister Zhao Binli disappeared coincides with the time of this case and the closure of a game. It is too coincidental. It just so happens that this Zhao Qiang is a genius in mathematics. This kind of person has very strong computing power. With such an IQ, it is not difficult to use exquisite means to plan a murder case that even the police cannot find him. Hypothetically, is it possible that this case is because Zhao Binli played a game abroad and is related to her disappearance and the 13 deceased people? And Zhao Qiang's purpose was to avenge his sister, so he arranged to kill those 13 people. If this reasoning is true, it becomes unreasonable. I have already reasoned before that in his eyes, ordinary people are no different from ants. Even if the ants provoke him, they only need to trample them to death, and then hide themselves to prevent the police from finding them. It is not difficult for him at all. Then why did he go to such great lengths to set up such a big situation as if he was provoking the police? Is it our police who provoked him? Why did he provoke the police for no reason? This is unreasonable. I have a new idea. Lin Xian said coldly. Is it possible that what he did was not for us to see, but for others to see? The reason for the layout is to attract others to come over to investigate this case. Other people. Ji Yang suddenly exclaimed, relatives of the deceased. It has to be said that there are no fools in the severe special criminal case task force. Lin Xian guessed what he wanted to say with just a hint. Right. Lin Xian's eyes flashed coldly. For example, Cossack mercenaries. Hiss, everyone gasped. If analyzed this way, it would be terrible. How smart a person is also an area of IQ. It is completely different from the combat field. Just like ordinary people are like ants in the eyes of people with high IQs. But people with high IQs are just ants in the eyes of mercenaries. No matter how smart you are, what can you do to target a powerful mercenary group? No matter how high your IQ is and how useful you are, just 2 mercenaries can kill you. You can't figure it out, can you? Lin Xian smiled coldly. Then if he chooses the Dragon Kingdom as his home court and then targets these mercenaries, what do you think? Taking advantage of the situation, the team members suddenly realized. It is said on the internet that Dragon Kingdom is a forbidden land for mercenaries. This is nonsense. But the mercenaries did not dare to enter the Dragon Kingdom easily. 1. Weapons and equipment are difficult to bring into the country. 2. The Dragon Kingdom cracks down very hard on the entry of foreign troops. 3. There are armed police in almost every major city in the Dragon Kingdom, and there are military bases near major cities. Don't underestimate the armed police, they are almost the same as soldiers. In terms of land combat capabilities alone, the combat effectiveness of the armed police can also be maximized. Even if they are not as strong as those mercenaries, they can kill you if they are piled up. But there are regular troops in those military bases. When the regular army is dispatched, let alone mercenaries. Even if there are 1,800 soldiers, they can really impress you. How much fake wine does a mercenary have to drink before he comes to the Dragon Kingdom to seek death? No mercenary group dared to send people into the Dragon Kingdom on a large scale. Even if they come in, there won't be many of them. If the murderer did target the Cossack mercenaries and chose Longwo as his home ground, he deliberately lured them here. There is only one possibility, to take advantage of the situation to attack. He knew that the Cossack mercenaries did not dare to send many people into Longwo. As long as there are not many people, he can deal with it. Thinking of this possibility, everyone was stunned again. Even if there are not many people, they are still a group of mercenaries. Sometimes the force value is so strong that any conspiracy is useless. How can you deal with a group of mercenaries? If this person is Zhao Qiang, he has been missing for 2 years. Where has he been in these 2 years? Lin Xian's eyes flashed with a faint light. Is it possible that he has gained some force in some way in these 2 years and can compete with some mercenaries? Everyone's face changed. They thought of Zhao Qiang's identity, genius. Geniuses can often do things that ordinary people cannot understand. For example, some geniuses in the military field. When they first entered the army, they were just a group of soldiers. But it only takes a few months, half a year, or a year. They may become scouts or special forces. He might even become the king of soldiers. 2 years. If a genius wants to gain military power, he also has the talent in this area. How strong will he be now? So is it possible that this kind of strength is prepared for those mercenaries? Lin Xian was surprised. Could it be that the murderer wanted to destroy the entire Cossack mercenary army by himself? Damn, awesome, my friend 666. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun. Chapter 447. 3 o'clock in the morning. The highway in the mountain city is like a silent black ribbon, extending into the endless distance. A container truck exits the highway intersection. The lights cast long shadows into the mountain city. Drive onto a road approaching the city. Stop the car and turn off the engine. The driver jumped out and checked the truck. It seems that the truck has broken down. A few minutes later, the container door opens. Figures jumped off the containers one after another and stood on the road. This is a group of strong men with an average height of over 175 centimeters. He was tall and mighty, like a moving fortress. The hands are rough and strong, covered with calluses and scars. This is because of the testimony of long battles and training. Their eyes were cold and gleaming with sharp light. Each person was carrying a heavy luggage bag. After getting off the car, the bearded man raised his wrist and opened the dial. The mini LCD screen lights up, putting together a map. Within the map, there is a red light spot marked. This is also the destination of their trip. The bearded man raised his hand and made a gesture. Everyone opened their luggage bags. Sabers and pistols appeared in their hands. The bearded man waved again. Everyone trotted towards the mountain city and disappeared into the darkness. About 200 meters away, on a green hilltop, 2 figures were standing there. Zhou Lai put down the telescope and looked at Lin Xian beside him, fishing. This group of 15 mercenaries entered the Dragon Kingdom. They are not out of control. As per normal conditions, this group of mercenaries were already corpses when they entered the Dragon Kingdom. But because of Lin Xian's order, No one touched them. Lin Xian nodded, they are fishing, but also because they are a group of minions. Some people deliberately attract our attention. Fish is the murderer. This group of mercenaries should be a Cossack mercenary group attracting the attention of the Dragon Kingdom. According to Lin Xian's guess, someone is playing tricks with them on building plank roads openly and secretly visiting Chenkang. Real Cossack mercenaries should have entered the mountain town in other ways. So there is no point in touching these miscellaneous fish now. Lin Xian's target was the murderer and the real Cossack mercenary. Also the leader of their group, Chuplina. Your own son is dead and you don't even take a look. Therefore Chuplina will definitely enter the Dragon Kingdom and enter the mountain city. This is the purpose of a certain murderer. What he did was supposedly for the Cossack mercenary group. Is it for Chuplina? From the beginning, the murderer's purpose was to serve the Cossack mercenary group. As for imitating Agatha's no survival, killing 13 professionals was done to confuse the police. In order to delay the police were dragged to death. As long as the police investigate, they will fall into a trap. But the murderer didn't expect that Lin Xian would see through his clever plan. A login tool was found on 13 of the dead. Found an antique game. Locking in a pair of missing siblings. Finally, the surveillance methods hidden in the villa were discovered. It also made Lin Xian roughly guess the murderer's purpose. The murder case is just a cover, a trap, and a pit. Targeting the Cossack mercenary group is the real purpose. Mountain City, a certain district. 15 mercenaries entered the neighborhood where the crime was committed. Hidden in a garage. No more movement. The silence is only temporary. Lin Xian looked at the surveillance camera in the garage on the tablet. They will definitely come out to cause trouble, attract everyone's attention, and play tricks on us. Some people will take the opportunity to enter the crime scene and enter the villa to investigate Boris' death. The truth. Boris is the youngest son of the leader of the Cossack mercenary group. It seemed to confirm Lin Xian's conjecture. The team of 15 mercenaries left the garage at 9:15 a.m. At this time, they were fully armed. Then, drove to the bank about a kilometer away. Robbed the bank. Lin Xian and Zhou Lai were both amused by this group of mercenaries. However, these mercenaries did not hurt anyone, they just occupied the bank. It seems that the conspicuous bag is attracting the attention of people in the Dragon Kingdom. Of course, if they have any behavior that threatens ordinary people, they are already corpses. Taiko's team of 20 soldiers had already locked them in. You can crush them to pieces anytime, anywhere. Countless police officers arrived, then SWAT. Surround the bank. Lin Xian had already left. Go to the villa where the crime occurred and ask all team members and police to leave. He was alone in the villa. Because he knew that some people were bound to appear. Not only a group of people, but also a murderer will show up. Waited for 2 full hours. Lin Xian's heart sank. No, his thoughts were guessed by the murderer? If this is the case, will the murderer rob someone along the way? Otherwise, why hasn't it appeared yet? Lin Xian took out his mobile phone and dialed a number. Have you found any abnormalities outside the villa area? A few minutes later. Through the city surveillance, we found that 2 suspicious commercial vehicles appeared outside the villa area an hour and a half ago. Zhang Xiaoyang reported, but strangely, a drone appeared and landed on one of the commercial vehicles. Then, the 2 commercial vehicles drove away. Find the 2 commercial vehicles. Lin Xian ordered coldly and rushed out of the villa. Sure enough, his thoughts were guessed by others. A murderer even guessed that he was casting a net to catch fish. But he drifted outside the fishing net and led another group of people away. Afternoon. 1:23. An abandoned factory in the suburbs. Lin Xian rushed into the factory yard and rushed into a huge factory building. The moment he entered, a bloody smell hit him. Saw 6 bodies lying on the ground. The time of death, no more than 2 hours. The appearance of the dead was all European. When he saw the posture of them falling down after death and the wounds from being shot, Lin Xian's expression changed completely. The 6 dead were all mercenaries at the level of king of soldiers. The person who killed them should be a soldier. How did you determine that? 6 shots in 1 second. 6 soldier king level mercenaries died at the same time. Lin Xian can do this, too. He can even fire 10 shots in 1 second, but he needs to fire 2 guns at the same time. He can do it because he is a hacker. He can control 2 pistols at the same time and shoot accurately. It is not easy for a normal person to shoot 4 shots in 1 second. Even if you are given 2 double guns, it is impossible to shoot 6 shots in 1 second and hit all 6 shots. And he killed 6 soldier kings. Unless the other party is a soldier. And not an ordinary soldier. Lin Xian's tone was as cold as ice. Chu Pulina was kidnapped by you, right? His eyes fell on the ground, on a special footprint. A biting coldness emerged on his body. It seemed that even the air around him was frozen. Lin Xian rushed out of the factory along the footprint. Now that you have appeared, how can I run? Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun. Chapter 448. There is a big mountain 16 kilometers away from the city center. The winter sunset shines on the mountains. The mountains are coated with a warm golden glow, and a quiet and peaceful atmosphere permeates the mountains. Lin Xian was in a running posture, rushing towards the mountain. His eyes were fixed on the footprints on the ground. Along the way, he followed the vehicle to the foot of the mountain, and traced it into the mountains through footprints. The footprints in front of me are very special, and the shoe prints made by stepping on them are very deep. It seems like a person is climbing a mountain with a weight of more than 100 kilograms on his back. However, it shouldn't be a heavy object, but a person. When Lin Xian is about to reach the top of the mountain, sudden, his face changed slightly and his pupils shrank. A feeling of extreme danger appeared. The strong sense of perception caused his body to change direction without hesitation. Move laterally to a distance of 3 meters. Bang, 4 shots in 1 second. 4 bullets flew past Lin Xian. Just a few seconds at midnight p.m. These 4 bullets can cover top, left, right and center. It was impossible to dodge. But when Lin Xian stopped, his expression changed again. Bang, 5 shots per second. While avoiding it, he was also shocked inside. The body assumes a curved posture. Watching 2 bullets fly past him. What shocked him was the other party could actually predict the direction in which he would dodge. If his perception hadn't been too strong to dodge in advance, he would have been hit by the bullet. Lin Xian moved quickly and changed his appearance quickly. He had made dozens of evasive moves in a row and rushed to the top of the mountain. But bang, 6 shots per second. Lin Xian's expression changed again, and his body was like a butterfly walking through flowers. This time, 6 bullets calculated all his evasion directions, impact points, and variable deflection points. That terrifying calculation almost made Lin Xian suffocate. No matter how fast he is, even if he looks like a ghost. A drop of blood flew from his cheek. Injured, Lin Xian was surprised. After his rebirth, he was injured more than once. But those who could hurt him were all soldiers, and there was more than one soldier. In the memory after rebirth. When had he been pushed to such a point by one person, so embarrassed, and injured? There has never been. But the next moment, an even more terrifying feeling of danger surged in Lin Xian's body and mind. Boom. 7 shots per second. Damn it, someone is cheating. Beads of sweat appeared on Lin Xian's forehead. This is a long-lost life and death crisis. The other party seemed to have calculated every move and thought he made. Use bullets to seal off all his hiding spaces. Lin Xian felt an unprecedented excitement. While dodging, raise your arms. Block it in front of your head. Blood exploded on his arm, minced, and penetrated. Then hit the second arm, crushing. Pause. Lin Xian, who had his arms behind him, grinned. He found kindred spirits. This kind of person is not a police king. But the other party is also a monster. If Lin Xian is a monster with extremely strong combat effectiveness, then the other party is a monster who is proficient in calculation. This calculation is simply mind-boggling. Just like Lin Xian once watched a film and television drama in his previous life. That movie and TV series features a terrifying computing genius. He only used a pencil and placed it on the trash can. It caused many accidents and killed one person. That feeling. It's as if this person can foresee the future and see through the butterfly effect. Certainly. That's a movie and TV show, it's fake and exaggerated. But the person in front of me is not as exaggerated as the leading actor in movies and TV series. But his calculation ability can already be described as terrifying. Is this the realm of genius? In an instant, Lin Xian's figure has reached the top of the mountain and looks 20 meters away. A tall figure was standing there, with a corpse beside him. 2 magazines fell from the 2 pistols, but were instantly replaced with 2 new magazines. However, the other party was not shooting. Because he knows that no matter how powerful his calculations are or how accurate his shooting skills are, can't kill a living person. God. This is the result of his calculation. Is there really a God in this world? Suppose it was 1 minute ago that someone told him that there are immortals and gods in this world. He will definitely point at the other person's nose and yell, "Are you crazy?" But now, he felt like he was a psycho. The brain's thinking was also completely messed up. Through the mask's eyes, he stared at Lin Xian. The shock, fear, and astonishment flashed in the eyes. Lin Xian was also looking directly at each other. He saw the opponent's body that was close to 185 centimeters tall, his strong and toned body, and his sharp, blade-like eyes behind the mask. It reminded him of someone. The other person is really similar to that person. And this image refers to combat effectiveness. They are all stronger than ordinary soldiers. Who's that person? Director of the Special Operations Bureau, Gao Yang. Why does the country allow you to exist? The other person spoke slowly, his voice hoarse and neutral. This sentence is like saying, humans will never allow the emergence of giant dragons. When giant dragons appear, dragon slayers will inevitably appear. Slaying a dragon will also become the supreme glory. It's like any powerful ruler will not want uncontrollable things to appear in his country that threaten his own existence. Let's make another most intuitive analogy. Look at those powerful, terrifying, and invincible beings in history. How many of them had a good end? Think about it carefully. Can't you figure it out? Lin Xian said in a light tone. You will not stand against the country and the people. You have a strong background. The most important thing is that you are chained. Almost instantly, the other party laughed and said, parents? Partner? Or something else? A strange luster appeared in Lin Xian's eyes, and he said 2 words, Zhaoqiang. He. The other party chuckled, names are meaningless. Does killing people have a meaning? Lin Xian's eyes moved and looked at the corpse at the other party's feet, Shupulina. No. The other party shook his head, with your IQ, you shouldn't think so. Lin Xian sneered, is it Shupulina's substitute? That's right. The other party nodded, looking at Lin Xian's eyes as if looking at the same kind, any disguise between us is meaningless, just like I can't kill you, you can't catch me either. Suddenly, his body fell backwards. Jump off the cliff. Lin Xian also appeared in the position where the other party just now. Watching a figure fall into the air. Bang, 7 shots in 1 second. Bullets shot. Lin Xian retreated violently, and then retreated again. Then he rushed forward and stood in front of the cliff. The other party had disappeared in the mist. I didn't catch you because I wanted to see what you were going to do. Lin Xian smiled and murmured, and you can't run away. Otherwise, you are just a bigger ant. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun. Chapter 449. The Dark Forest. A figure was walking quickly. Sudden. You let me go on purpose, right? The hooded man stopped and murmured, want to see my purpose? He stood quietly, sensing his surroundings. But, nothing was found. I know you're here. The hooded man murmured, you've been looking at me. Target locked. Zhou Lai's words came from the wireless earphones. Lin Xian stopped and looked up into the sky. 3 drones hovered high in the sky. It is almost impossible for ordinary people to spot them with the naked eye. But it is impossible for people locked by them to escape. Don't lose track. Lin Xian warned, that's a monster. Ha ha. Zhou Lai asked with a smile, is there anyone more monster than you? The glory of socialism protects you. Lin Xian rolled his eyes and looked at his arms. The arms injured by bullets have long since recovered. Well, I'm quite a monster. Lin Xian, unable to complain, ended the call and suddenly sneered, old fox, are you really good at playing? Chuplina, the leader of the Cossack mercenary group, has arrived in the mountain city. This old fox played like a golden cicada and escaped from its shell. After thinking about it, he guessed that someone was trying to plot against him. A stand-in was used. In the end, the murderer was deceived. Where is the real Chuplina hidden? Or going somewhere? He will definitely go to this place. Morgue. Shancheng Forensic Identification Center, Morgue. There is a row of huge corpse freezers placed here. An old white man stood in front of the refrigerator. The once tough eyes saw the refrigerator being opened and looking at a cold corpse. It instantly became empty and confused, as if all hope had disappeared with this body. The transparent body bag was opened. The old man stretched out a trembling hand and held the corpse's hand, as if trying to find a trace of life in it. However, the cold touch broke his heart. Tears slid down the wrinkled face. Boris, my boy. The old man murmured to himself, his voice trembling and weak. He slowly closed his eyes, covering up the endless sorrow and reluctance in his eyes, and his voice became hoarse and cold, find him. Yes. 2 tall, strong men bowed, saluted, and left. Sudden. The old man opened his eyes, and they were as deep as the sea. There is no trace of pain or sadness, just like 2 pieces of amber that have been tempered by time. Turn around and leave. When the old man walked out of the Forensic Identification Center, he stood under the dark night sky. Countless heavily armed men gathered in front of him. Longuo, do you want to give me an explanation? The old man raised his head and looked at the night sky. Sudden. What's my explanation? A cold word seemed to come from an eye cellar, with every word carrying a biting chill, are you worthy? On the road. A tall figure was strolling leisurely, ignoring the more than 20 mercenaries beside the old man. Walk forward step by step and stand 10 meters away. Chuplina, remember I told you. Lin Xian's eyes were as cold as frost, without any warmth. If you dare to send mercenaries into the Dragon Kingdom, I will chop off your head. Have you forgotten? The old man's expression changed, and he said word by word, "A monster from the Dragon Kingdom. Have you even heard of me?" Lin Xian's voice made it impossible to feel any emotion. "You have done so many horrible things in so many countries." The old man sarcastically said, "Who dares not to remember you? Since you know everything." Lin Xian raised his hand and pointed at the 22 mercenaries beside the old man. "Do you think these 22 mercenaries can protect you? Don't talk about the king of soldiers. Even 22 soldiers are of no use. This is the Dragon Kingdom, his home ground. I am no longer in a foreign country and being chased by others. That's why Lin Xian is so unscrupulous. Behind me stands a superpower. What the hell are you going to fight with me for?" As he spoke, along the streets, and in the darkness, countless figures walked out slowly and slowly stood behind Lin Xian, and surrounded the old man, whose expression changed drastically, and the 22 mercenaries. That was a total of 50 people, 50 soldiers. A burly figure over 1.9 meters tall stood next to Lin Xian. It brings an indescribable shock to people. It can make anyone feel a terrible sense of oppression. The leader of the Special Kosovo Soldiers and the director of the Special Kosovo Operations Bureau. Gao Yang. "Do you think I'm stupid?" Chuplina's expression became calm, her eyes shone with wisdom, and she stared at Lin Xian coldly. "Then what else do you have in mind?" Lin Xian seemed to have guessed something, for example, placing a time bomb or something in the city, or kidnapping someone. "We are no longer children. From the moment you step into the territory of the Dragon Kingdom, you should have thought that you would have what an end, isn't it?" Chuplina froze and sighed. As if he had aged more than 10 years in an instant. "My child is dead, why don't you even ask me to find the murderer? I only give you one chance, if you still want to see the murderer of your son. So now," Lin Xian said coldly, "hold your head with your hands and kneel down." Chuplina's eyes dimmed and she waved her hand. The mercenary beside him lowered his weapon. A group of people, holding their heads in their hands, slowly knelt down. Chuplina was handcuffed and put into a police car. Lin Xian sat next to him. The police car started and the motorcade drove to the Mountain City Public Security Bureau. Lin Xian took out his cell phone and called Gao Yang, "Take your people and let the others go with you." "No." Gao Yang responded and ended the call. When Chuplina heard the conversation, her expression became strange and she glanced at Lin Xian. "Are you using me to fish?" Yes, Lin Xian was also looking at him. "Aren't you afraid that my bait will choke the fish to death?" Chuplina scoffed. "Will not." Lin Xian smiled contemptuously. "I know you have a backup plan, otherwise, how could you dare to come to Dragon Kingdom?" Chuplina's expression changed drastically, and her face became gloomy. By this time, the convoy had already left. Only the police car they were sitting in continued to drive to the Mountain City Public Security Bureau. Sudden. An off-road vehicle seemed to have lost control and rushed towards the police car. "Ha!" Lin Xian sneered. The body appeared in the front seat and grabbed the police officers in the driver's seat and passenger seat. "Wave your hands left and right." Bang! 2 police officers smashed the car window and flew out. But it fell gently to the ground. Not injured, but confused. Boom! The SUV collided with the police car. The police car was pushed and spun on the road, suddenly flipping over. It hit the ground hard. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun. Chapter 450. The SUV stopped. 4 tall and strong-armed men wearing masks rushed to the police car. As they walked, they fired into the air. "Tut-tut Tuesday. Da-da-da." They were not trying to kill people, but to create chaos. On the streets on both sides of the road, pedestrians and onlookers were in chaos. There were bursts of screams and shouts. When the four rushed to the overturned police car, they were stunned. They only saw Chuplina, who was unconscious in the car, but no one else. The four armed men could no longer care about so much, and quickly lifted Chuplina out of the car. They ran to the SUV and drove away frantically. In the corner of the street, Lin Xian squinted his eyes and watched this scene. Just now, at the moment when the police car turned over, he had jumped out of the car. He jumped out of the car window and used the overturned car body to block all the side of the SUV. After landing, he hid in the dark of the street and did not take action. As long as the four people did not open fire on civilians, Lin Xian would not take action. In fact, it was just as he guessed. The purpose of the four armed men was just to rescue Chuplina. Lin Xian was also using Chuplina to clear all the mercenaries in the city. Chuplina was the leader of the Cossack mercenary group. It would be a miracle if he didn't have a backup plan. What's more, how could the most powerful mercenary group in the world not have even one combat soldier? From beginning to end, Lin Xian didn't find any combat soldier level mercenaries. Don't you think it's strange? There is another strange thing. Chuplina's skin is not right. Too pampered skin, and there is a layer of light makeup on his face. After investigation, Chuplina is 63 years old, under normal circumstances. The skin of a person in his 60s should not look like that of a person in his 40s. Plus the light makeup on his face, a stand-in? Lin Xian's expression became cold and cruel. If it was a stand-in, was this old guy acting in the morgue? The real Chuplina never showed up. He was also fishing. It's the same old saying, under the throne, there are mountains of corpses and seas of blood. Can such a person be the leader of the Cossack mercenary group? Three parties acting together. Lin Xian sneered and murmured, the murderer is acting, Chuplina is acting, and I am also acting now. Okay, let's see who can play who in the end. I also want to see what tricks you guys are playing. The off-road vehicle was speeding. After leaving the city, it drove off the road and into a meadow. There was a prepared car in the meadow. Four armed men took Chuplina into the car. Then the car drove to the road, and actually drove back to the mountain city in the opposite direction. After passing through a tunnel, a container truck appeared in front. The door of the container suddenly opened, and a metal springboard was lowered, rubbing sparks on the ground. The car accelerated, passed the springboard, and rushed into the container. An armed man climbed out of the car's sunroof, put away the gangplank, and closed the container door. A car disappeared in the tunnel. Even if someone wanted to use surveillance to hunt them down, they would not be able to find the car easily. But they didn't know. All of this was seen by Lin Xian. Not only that, Lin Xian was still holding a mobile phone in his hand, watching a surveillance screen. A man with a hood entered a residential area, and then disappeared. Lin Xian smiled absent-mindedly and put down his phone. It's useless. As long as you are in Longguo, you can't run away. You will definitely come to find Chuplina, right? Lin Xian can calculate it. While he was monitoring this murderer was also using him. Lin Xian had an illusion that the murderer deliberately showed up for him to see, or let the police find him. Then, let the police find Chuplina's stand-in. Is he telling the police that Chuplina has many stand-ins? Is he also using the police to find the real Chuplina? If that's the case, it's quite amazing. This kind of calculation is unique. But what does the murderer want to do? Lin Xian's mind is boiling, all kinds of reasoning and analysis. Because his mind is also beginning to be confused. There are too many things that are not clear and unreasonable. For example, if the murderer is Zhao Qiang. Lin Xian also saw his terrifying strength. If you want to kill Chuplina, it seems that there are many ways, right? For example, the oldest way, Jing Ke assassinated Qin Go directly to the Cossack mercenary group to be a mercenary. Then wait for an opportunity to assassinate. Isn't it more convenient and simpler? Why do you have to go through so much trouble to lead Chuplina to Longguo? Suddenly, Lin Xian thought of something. Zhao Qiang's sister is missing. Where did she disappear? Longguo. And the 13 dead, 12 of them are Longguo people. Only Chuplina's son Boris is a foreigner. Why does a foreigner have a Longguo girlfriend? And he likes living in Longguo very much. And Zhao Qiang's sister is also from Longguo. They also played a game together. Since they are game friends, have they met offline? If they have met, has Zhao Qiang's sister Zhao Binglei been favored by Boris? What did Boris do to Zhao Binglei then? Is that why Zhao Binglei disappeared? Zhao Qiang discovered this through some means. Wrong. Now that Zhao Qiang has found Boris, how could he not ask about Zhao Binlei's whereabouts? Still not right. If Zhao Binlei was attracted by Boris, she disappeared because of Boris. Then Zhao Qiang just kills Boris. Why did you still want to lure Chukpurina to the Dragon Kingdom? Another point. Why does Boris like to stay in Dragon Kingdom? Sudden. Lin Xian's expression changed. A flash of light burst out in his exhausted mind, flashing like lightning. He had a bold idea. Is there a possibility that Chuplina, the leader of the Cossack mercenary group? Have you been living in the Dragon Kingdom, under another identity? Zhao Binglei's disappearance was not due to something Boris did to her. But what did Boris' father Chuplina do to her? If Zhao Qiang wants to find his sister, he must lure Chuplina out. Because of this hiding place, even his son Boris doesn't know about it. Therefore, Zhao Qiang set up a trap to kill Boris. No matter how Chuplina can hide, your son is dead, how can you still hide it? Why don't you come to see your son's body and see him for the last time? There is only one possibility why Zhao Qiang is so crazy. His sister Zhao Binlei is probably still alive? Locked away by Chuplina in a place no one knows about? If this is the reasoning, is the case reasonable? Lin Xian, who started his brainstorming, let out a long breath. There was a complicated expression on his face. It turns out that the reason why Zhao Qiang is so crazy, killing people, and setting up traps, just to find his sister?